Look at verses 39 to 44. It says, "Then he commanded them to make them all sit down in groups on the green grass. So they sat down in ranks, in hundreds and in fifties. And when he had taken the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, he looked up to heaven, blessed and broke the loaves, and gave them to his disciples to set before them. And the 2 fish he divided among them all. So they all ate and were filled. And they took up 12 baskets full of fragments and of the fish. Now those who had eaten the loaves were about 5,000 men. So the disciples tried their best to solve the problem. They tried to work at it from a natural viewpoint. And then the Lord steps in and he takes matters into his own hands. So you can imagine Jesus taking control of the situation. He commands the people that they should sit down in groups of 50s and in groups of hundreds. And the idea here in the original wording of groups is actually that they were sitting like vegetables on a plot of land. And so what do you do when you plant your vegetables? You've got them all lined up, right? So the idea is that they weren't just all over the place. They were in nice, neat groups. It was an orderly situation. And then the Lord took that little amount that the disciples had. He blessed it. He broke it. He gave it to the disciples, and they in turn began to pass it out from person to person. So you can imagine Jesus taking bread, and he gives it out. And then supernaturally, there's more bread and there's more fish in his hands. So the disciples, they would come to Jesus, they would receive from him, and then they would take it out and they would minister to the people. And I think that's a great picture of ministry, to be honest with you. If you're going to minister for the Lord, you better stop looking at your own resources and your own abilities, and you better start running to him and saying, Lord, could you give me something that I could give to the people that you've put in my path? And I think that's a lesson to think about. I do think there are other practical lessons here. The first thing I think we can learn is that when we bring the little that we have to Jesus, that he can take it, he can multiply it, and he can use it for his glory. And I have certainly found that true in my own life. In my own natural self, I don't have much to offer anybody. I don't have enough resources in my life, and I can't accomplish the things that are before me. And yet the Lord somehow manages to provide all that's needed in order to do what he's called me to do in life. I think that 2 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 8 is a great one for us to think about. It says, God is able to make all grace abound towards you, that you, always having all sufficiency in all things, may have an abundance for every good work. So he can and he does provide as you simply follow by faith. When we think about how we have so little to give to the Lord, I think that you and I can learn from other biblical examples as well of those who had so little, and yet the Lord used them in such great ways. We might think of the young boy David. What did David have available to him when he battled against the giant? He had a sling and 5 smooth stones. That's not that much. And yet he was able to conquer Goliath because he had faith and trust that God would provide everything needed for the victory. What about Moses when he went before Pharaoh? Did he go before Pharaoh with a giant army? All he came before Pharaoh was a staff and a relative that was with him, and that was it. So often we think, well, geez, I don't have very much to give. And yet I would say, look at what the Lord can do when you just give yourself to him and you submit to his leadership in your life. He can take that little that we have and he can use it to minister to many. And I would also say that if you're an individual that has a life that says, I want to be used of Jesus, I think that you have to expect that there's going to be some breaking along the way in your life. It's been said that those who are broken, those are the ones that the Lord uses to minister to others because they've been in the valleys and the difficult places to be in life, and the Lord has said, look, I know you've gone through a time of brokenness, but I'm going to use that to minister to others. And I think all of us who are true believers in Jesus should be able to say that, yes, I have been broken. I've come to the end of myself. And when you're at the end of yourself, I think the Lord is like, finally, I can use you because you're not relying on your own strength or your own abilities.